Who dares pierce the veil between light and shadow, where the screams of 1,000 dying worlds still echo? The chronicle begins in a place older than the Imperium itself, in the interstice of reality where Ghostwind whispers. Here, reality fractures beneath the weight of divinity and entropy alike. Civilizations have risen like brief sparks only to be extinguished under the boot of gods who march unseen. Ships burn with sacred flame as their captains mutter prayers that shatter into silence. The stars themselves seem to recoil, bleeding light into the endless void. A lone astropath, his mind gnawed by visions, records the unnameable. A rift below both warp and materium, a corridor through which nothing sane may pass. Every heartbeat in this space carries the scent of ancient betrayal. Ghostwind does not merely move. It devours, leaving only whispers of those who dared to follow its path. Beneath the hollowed vaults of a decayed manufactorum, the air is thick with ozone and rot. Monolithic statues of saints and martyrs lean as if listening to the wails of unseen predators. Servitors cling to molten conduits, their programming gnawed by centuries of neglect, repeating prayers whose meanings have been lost to time. Somewhere in the shadows, something watches, unseen yet ancient, an entity older than the Emperor's earliest victories. The astropath trembles, recording in trembling script visions of cities that rise and crumble within a single heartbeat. Warp tides clash with the rhythm of reality, bending light into impossible geometries. Ghostwind moves as a predator across this plane, silencing worlds in a whisper. No weapon of man or Xenos can touch it. Faith is the only tether, yet even it frays in the presence of this otherness. History itself shudders, as though aware that some stories were never meant to be written. In the void between star systems, a cruiser drifts, its hull engraved with runes of warding and the scars of 10,000 battles. The crew sleeps fitfully, their dreams infiltrated by visions of civilizations folded like paper, devoured by the eddies of Ghostwind. In the observation deck, the void seems liquid, waves of starlight bending and twisting unnaturally. The captain's journal speaks of echoes, the screams of billions, repeating across eons as though some ancient intelligence rehearses its cruelty. The navigator's eyes shine with the reflection of impossible geometries. He whispers of corridors beneath the warp, where time is a toy and fate a suggestion. Something in the vessel reacts to these intrusions, systems failing in ways that defy understanding. Weapons discharge spontaneously, targeting nothing, yet leaving charred imprints of horrors that may have existed only as thought. Ghostwind is near, a presence felt rather than seen, a herald of the ineffable. Even the Emperor's light seems dim here, powerless against a darkness older than his dominion. On a world scorched by endless siege, the ruins of a planetary capital stretch to the horizon, jagged towers like broken teeth. Cults have risen in the ashes, chanting in tongues that predate the Imperium. Their eyes gleam with the madness gifted by visions of Ghostwind, promises of knowledge beyond the corporeal plane. Mechanicum outposts record anomalies, energy fields bleeding into the planet's crust, the air shimmering with entities glimpsed only by those on the edge of sanity. Armies of men and psychers march across the barren plains, yet their battles feel like a theater to some unseen audience, their sacrifices mere echoes feeding the insatiable corridors beneath warp and Materium. In the deepest catacombs, monks uncover devices older than memory, instruments designed to pierce the veil. Each activation brings whispers of worlds that should not exist, memories of deaths yet to occur. Ghostwind's influence spreads like a slow plague, invisible yet inevitable, consuming both flesh and the foundations of belief. Above the cataclysm, void storms tear at the skies with shards of psychic energy, distorting both time and vision. Fleets converge on the epicenter of a rift, unaware that their presence has already been noted, cataloged, and consumed in some dimension beyond comprehension. Admirals scribble frantic orders while the air thrums with resonance from the immaterial. Ghostwind moves with intent, bending the laws of causality, drawing threads of possibility into its orbit. Space Marines descend, their armor etched with wards, chanting the litany of purity as they march through winds that scream. Every strike leaves residue of unbeing, enemies erased before their bodies touch the ground. Echoes of long-forgotten demon engines flicker into perception, engines whose masters were annihilated before the first human empire arose. Even the most devout priests sense an absence, a void not of nothing, but of everything, an erasure of memory, time, and consequence. Ghostwind does not kill. It rewrites existence, and its eyes are everywhere. In the depths of a forbidden's archive, scrolls float unsupported, ink shimmering with psychic residue. Astropaths murmur forbidden's formulas, their tongues twisting as they interpret signals from Ghostwind. Each symbol pulses with a memory that does not belong, the laughter of dead civilizations inscribed between lines. Scholars speak of the dimension below dimensions, a realm unmeasurable by technology, a place where thought and matter collapse into one another. Every attempt to map it fails, yet every failure adds another layer to the legend. Servitors report anomalies, corridors reshaping, gravity reversed, and light bending in impossible directions. The librarian sense a presence of infinite patience, observing, judging, yet withholding revelation. Ghostwind whispers of secrets too vast, too terrible for mortal comprehension, and those who hear cannot unhear. The Chronicle insists that history is not linear here. Timelines fold and overlap, and those who resist are absorbed into the narrative, becoming footnotes in a story that eternally remembers them even as they cease to exist. Among shattered moons and gas-choked stars, the whispers of long-dead emperors echo. Space hulks drift silently, harboring creatures evolved beyond reason, sustained by the psychic currents of Ghostwind. Explorer fleets attempt salvage, their crews praying to machine gods, unaware that the machines themselves quiver in recognition. The warp trembles beneath these structures, corridors within corridors where physics itself fractures. Rogue psychers are found in states of ecstatic terror, their flesh etched with geometries that defy the Imperium's understanding. Ghostwind is patient, its tendrils entwined with fate, observing each act of hubris as a lesson in cosmic humility. No weapon can touch it, no prayer fully contain it. Even the ecclesiarchy murmurs cautionary doctrines, speaking in hushed tones of that which lies beneath the known. To encounter Ghostwind is to confront the memory of every war, every death, every truth that mankind was never meant to know. On worlds abandoned to plague and radiation, cults erect monoliths etched with symbols that vibrate in tune with unseen currents. Each cultist swears allegiance to a voice that promises dominion, yet rewards only revelation of the impossible. Sisters of battle patrol the outskirts, finding nothing but silence punctuated by tremors of power too vast to measure. Mechanicum probes detect energy fields that respond to thought, manifesting visions of cities folded into themselves, their inhabitants trapped in loops of suffering and memory. Ghostwind is neither malice nor benevolence. It is inevitability made perceptible. Whole planetary ecosystems resonate with the pulse of its presence, trees and rivers vibrating as if echoing some grand alien cadence. Astronomers note stars blinking in unnatural sequences, their light a morse of something older than the Emperor. Every observation confirms the same truth. Ghostwind is patient, silent, and inevitable, waiting to draw all existence into its unending chronicle. Within the arteries of an abandoned hive city, shadows pulse as though alive. Servitors stumble upon doors that were never built, corridors that lead into the same chamber endlessly. The Adeptus Arbites report disappearances, their investigations unraveling sanity itself. Ghostwind has touched this place, leaving residue of events that never were and histories that may never exist. Records indicate transmissions from the hive's apex, messages that loop through centuries with impossible timestamps. Psychers entering the zones experience vertigo as if their consciousness is spread thin across multiple realities. Machinery, once thought dead, hums with life, carrying whispers of eons-long conflicts. In the deepest strata, A chamber carved from obsidian resonates with frequencies that make flesh ache. Ghostwind does not reveal itself. It suggests, implies, and bends. Every step forward is a negotiation with forces beyond reason, and every whisper hints at truths humanity is not prepared to bear. The city itself seems to breathe with anticipation. Among the frozen wastes of a death world, ruins glitter beneath auroras of unknown spectral energy. Explorers find glyphs etched deep into ice, pulsating faintly, reacting to their presence. The planet itself seems sentient, aware, its frost-ridden winds carrying messages from beyond dimensions. Ghostwind has passed here, leaving trails in the psychic lattice that bind stars to memories of obliterated empires. No weapon can harm what has already been consumed by its attention. No prayer can slow the entropy it invokes. Predators evolved from nightmares stalk the explorers, yet they too are reflections of the rift's will. In the sky, constellations flicker as if acknowledging something hidden. A map not of stars, but of events folded into one another. The explorers record these phenomena in trembling detail, knowing they will not survive the journey to share them. Ghostwind's presence is a shadow without substance, a horizon without end, watching, waiting, always patient. In the forges of a world once devoted to war, machines lie dormant, yet vibrations echo through their cores as if aware of trespassers. Adeptus Mechanicus tech priests discover schematics that should not exist, blueprints etched in impossible geometry. Ghostwind whispers through the machinery, influencing minds without contact. Cults spring up overnight, interpreting the murmurs as divine instruction, only to vanish into nothingness within cycles of hours. The forges themselves warp reality, producing artifacts whose properties cannot be measured or replicated, as though existence is a suggestion rather than a rule. Every tool, weapon, and engine resonates with a memory of annihilation, the imprint of civilizations that never were and futures that may never come. Even the Omnissiah's light seems dim here. Ghostwind does not grant clarity but unravels understanding, leaving mortals with glimpses of infinite truths they cannot bear. The forges await the next visitor, patient as eternity itself. On the edge of the Arbiter's sector, a lone vessel drifts toward a void rift, hull scorched by unknown energy. The crew communicates in broken dialects, speaking of events that have not occurred yet. Ghostwind manifests faintly, a shimmer in the void that bends perception. Sensor logs record impossible readings, stars blinking, signals folding, the passage of time itself questioned. Every attempted maneuver ends with the vessel exactly where it began, as if guided by an intelligence indifferent to mortality. Psychers feel a pull toward the rift, visions of entire civilizations crumpling before their eyes. The vessel carries knowledge it cannot contain, and its journey is both inevitable and unknowable. Ghostwind waits, patient, omnipresent, shaping fate with subtle gestures. The final log entry, scrawled in trembling hand, reads only, "It watches, and we are already part of its design." Silence follows, yet the rift pulses as if responding, hinting at truths never fully revealed. Within the dim corridors of a drifting space hulk, echoes of battles long forgotten replay endlessly. Apparitions of soldiers, Xenos, and demons flicker in peripheral vision, caught between reality and memory. Ghostwind's presence is tangible yet impossible to confront. The Hulk's power cores pulse with psychic energy, harmonizing with the currents of a dimension below warp and Materium. Explorers who linger too long vanish, leaving only whispers recorded by recording devices. Librarians speculate that the Hulk itself is a fragment of Ghostwind, a conscious shard moving across the galaxy, collecting and erasing as it goes. Histories fold, repeating events with subtle variations, teaching lessons no living being can fully understand. Even the Emperor's name offers no protection. In the end, the Hulk drifts toward a darkened star system, and those who observe feel a quiet terror. The knowledge that Ghostwind's reach is infinite, and the revelation of its purpose will never arrive. The silence that follows is not empty. It is waiting. The cathedral world shudders under the weight of prayers that have grown brittle with centuries of fear. Candles gutter in the vast nave as acolytes tremble before icons worn nearly to dust. Their whispers speak of a war not waged with bolt or blade, but with faith itself. The priests trace trembling fingers over scriptures that hint at a dimension beyond comprehension, a place where ghostwind and mortal devotion intersect in cruel mockery. Paladins march silently past, their helmets reflecting faces they cannot recognize, eyes searching for truth in the shadow of doubt. Above, the throne of the planetary governor gleams with gold and deceit, counselors whispering of alliances and betrayals, yet unrealized. Every litany recited feels hollow, a ritual masking the corrosion beneath. Even the confessions of the faithful carry the taint of hesitation. In the silence after prayers, the cathedral exhales a sigh older than the Imperium itself, a warning too subtle for those who bow too quickly. The battlements of a fortress monastery rise like fractured teeth against a blood-red horizon. Adeptus Astartes patrol in pairs, their steps measured, armor resonant with the echoes of 1,000 lost brothers. Within their chapels, librarians murmur of visions that strain credulity, a brotherhood reshaped by forces beyond the Materium. Whispers of corruption stitched into the warp-silvered seams of the galaxy itself. Some brothers kneel, counting victories that may have never happened, their faith brittle yet defiant. Political liaisons with planetary governors twist truth into weapons, offering the promise of safety in exchange for obedience, yet hiding motives older than the chapter itself. Ghostwind's influence seeps into every stone, every vault, making brother distrust brother, faith question faith. Even the monastic archives betray memory, recording events that contradict themselves, histories folded upon themselves like the pages of an unread codex. By night, shadows slither through corridors, unseen but palpably aware. In dreams, warriors glimpse comrades dead for centuries, their eyes accusing, reminding all that loyalty is a weapon and trust a liability. Within the bowels of an orbiting citadel, Mechanicus and Conceers debate in tones hushed and fevered. The cogitator arrays glow with data that defies linearity. Every calculation returns contradictions, probabilities folding into impossibilities. Some insist the rift beneath warp and Materium is the source, a wound in reality feeding chaos into logic itself. Others suspect intentionality, that someone or something has bent faith, loyalty, and machinery into instruments of subtle war. Servitors carry encoded messages that vanish before they reach recipients. The Adeptus Administratum observe silently, their fingers upon records that should not exist, aware that bureaucracy itself can be weaponized into heresy. Pilgrims arrive with visions, their eyes hollow, speaking of sanctity and terror in the same breath, their words reshaping belief like acid upon metal. In this tension, conspiracies germinate, moving like spores through stone and mind. The walls hum with a quiet knowledge. One misstep in allegiance, and the fortress itself may turn upon those sworn to defend it. On a devastated agri world, the faithful gather under a sky perpetually choked with ash. Sisters of battle patrol the ruins, their bolters loaded yet trembling with the weight of conscience. Local clergy preach of salvation while secretly negotiating with rogue elements promising relief, their sermons crafted to conceal ambition. Villagers confess sins they do not understand, seeking absolution from a divinity whose attention may already be elsewhere. Whispered rumors reach the sisters. Some priests speak openly of Ghostwind's influence, claiming miracles are echoes of its passage, blessings and curses entwined indistinguishably. Faith fractures, doubt taking root like rotten sacred timber. Even the acts of heroism and charity seem tinged with a shadow, as though the true cost of devotion is unseen. By night, spectral winds swirl through the ash-choked streets, carrying the scent of betrayal, of loyalties broken before the first word of contract. The sisters sleep fitfully, bolters cold beside them, for even in vigilance, certainties of fading illusion. Among the void-frozen moons of a distant star, Voidfarers discover a wreckage older than memory. Its hull is etched with symbols both holy and profane, undecipherable yet resonant with recognition. Crew psychers feel the pull of something patient, ancient, and meticulous in its observation. Debate arises. Should the vessel be catalogued, salvaged, or left to drift? Each choice bears risk. Every hesitation feels preordained. Communication logs reveal conversations never spoken, agreements signed in the ink of thought, alliances sealed with impossible intentions. Ghostwind's fingerprints are faint but undeniable, shaping both machinery and belief alike. Among the crew, whispers grow that loyalty itself is a currency they no longer control. By the time the first boarding teams enter the wreck, the vessel shifts subtly, corridors rearranging themselves, the air humming with forbidden resonance. By the final report, half the crew questions their memories, some deny ever boarding. Only the logs remain, fragmented, contradictory, yet insistent on one truth. Someone, or something, has rewritten their perception of fidelity. On a shattered hive world, insurgents clash with regimental forces in a ballet of smoke and ash. Among the ranks, officers and priests alike grow wary of orders that seem simultaneously correct and damning. Civilians, already accustomed to despair, whisper of truths too terrible to name, of commanders who vanish and reappear as shadows of themselves. Chaplains counsel their squads, but even their guidance carries uncertainty. Visions of saints and demons blur together. Soldiers hesitate in battle, hesitation feeding confusion, confusion birthing catastrophe. Above, void lances illuminate the blackened sky, yet the light reveals more questions than answers. Why do some units fight with the skill of gods while others crumble without touch of enemy? Ghostwind's influence is subtle, systemic, threading doubt into action itself. In hidden chambers, conspirators measure faith against ambition, their loyalty pledged only to outcomes they cannot yet perceive. When the insurgent command falls, a revelation strikes the survivors. Some victories were orchestrated, some deaths foretold, and the very war may have been a stage set by forces unseen. In the sanctum of an asteroid monastery, librarians convene in a circle of psychic resonance. Each senses the fraying of devotion across the sector, the subtle corruption of truth into weaponized heresy. A young initiate presents visions, specters of battlefields that should not exist, of allies who betray without cause, of miracles that extinguish as soon as they are born. The elders murmur, cautious, knowing that revelation itself can be a sin. Across the room, ancient relics vibrate faintly, humming with intelligence that resists comprehension. Every prayer muttered is double-edged. Every invocation risks drawing attention from something patient, indifferent, and observing. Loyalty is dissected, not with blade, but with thought, the cracks appearing in minds long disciplined. As the conclave debates, a shadow moves across the walls, visible to none yet felt by all, an omen without origin. The psychic tremor that follows is quiet, but undeniable. Certainty has fractured, leaving only tentative allegiance in the hearts of the faithful. On a frontier fortress world, planetary governors convene with military advisors, their council chambers dense with incense and suspicion. Maps etched with constellations, war zones, and secret corridors of power are spread before them, yet each believes their calculations are absolute. Whispers infiltrate the chamber, rumors of agents who move unseen, of faith that can be bought or corrupted. Envoys deliver messages that contradict one another, each claiming divine sanction, yet each carrying subtle poison. Ghostwind's shadow is implied here, not manifest, a reminder that influence need not touch flesh to rewrite outcomes. Soldiers march under banners of honor while political machinations gnaw at the foundations of duty. Even the Emperor's edict feels strained, filtered through human desire and ambition. By dusk, an aide discovers evidence of betrayal in sacred tomes, a covenant made with heresy itself. The revelation is whispered, its truth incomplete, yet the shock is enough. Loyalty may have been an illusion all along, a scaffold upon which ruin waits. Amid the irradiated deserts of a dead system, a cadre of rogue psychers gathers, their bodies etched with sigils that pulse faintly. They speak of Ghostwind as a teacher, a mirror, and a test. The air quivers with psychic tension, the desert itself bending subtly to the patterns of their collective thought. They record histories that may never exist, recounting victories and deaths unexperienced, teaching lessons in manipulation and observation. Scouts report phenomena that defy physical law, footprints appearing without passage, echoes of conversation before words are spoken. Faithful inquisitors arrive to investigate, yet leave questioning their own allegiance. In visions, commanders betray friends, priests counsel the wrong causes, and entire campaigns are revealed to have been orchestrated by forces unseen. The rogue psychers laugh quietly, aware that perception itself is malleable. Ghostwind is present not as conqueror, but as playwright, and the universe itself is the stage. By nightfall, the dunes shimmer with images of cities folding upon themselves, secrets carved into the sand like hieroglyphs only the insane can read. Within a void station orbiting a dead sun, emissaries of multiple factions convene under neutral flags. Every gesture, every word is laden with suspicion. Intelligence gathered over centuries collides with intuition and rumor, forming a lattice of deception. Reports of Ghostwind's subtle interventions circulate quietly, yet no one admits knowledge. Priests argue over orthodoxy, generals debate strategy, and governors guard their secrets like relics of impossible value. In the corridors, servants vanish and reappear in contradictory accounts. Hallways shift imperceptibly, and documents contradict themselves. The participants sense a presence shaping events from beyond perception, an architect who need not reveal itself to control outcomes. At the council's climax, an envoy produces a fragment of truth, a betrayal so ancient it predates their understanding. Its revelation shatters decorum, faith, and alliance alike. Silence falls, thick and expectant. The emissaries realize too late, some knowledge should remain buried, and some actions, even in service of righteousness, carry consequences far beyond comprehension. On a cursed world of blackened oceans, a detachment of knights patrol reefs of dead coral, their sensors flickering with interference. Below the waves, ruins rise from the depths, structures that resonate with signals older than memory. Explorers find inscriptions that defy comprehension, histories contradicting themselves and yet palpable in their gravitas. A High Inquisitor interprets the signs as prophecy, a warning and a confession. Crews report visions, comrades acting against orders, all eyes whispering things they did not speak. Ghosts of faith and loyalty bleeding into reality. Ghostwind's presence is a lull, a subtle gravity bending actions toward unseen design. Every act of courage carries duality, salvation and damnation intertwined. At the surface, the sunless horizon burns red as though bleeding across the sky. The final transmission is a whisper. What has been faithful is no longer whole. Silence follows, heavy, eternal, and full of expectation, as if the planet itself waits for judgment not yet delivered. In the catacombs beneath a forgotten hive, a conclave of heretic priests convenes, their shadows long and sinuous. Every chant reverberates with meaning twisted by centuries, histories overwritten in psychic residue. Illuminated manuscripts shift subtly under candlelight, images changing before comprehension can settle. Warriors and scholars alike find themselves questioning actions, motives, and memories. An envoy arrives, presenting evidence of a pact between trusted officials and entities whose names are unspoken even in prayer. Faith fractures, doubt blooms, and the line between loyalist and heretic disappears. Ghostwind does not intervene directly, yet its presence is pervasive, a force folding loyalty into uncertainty, belief into fear. By the conclave's end, a revelation emerges. Someone, perhaps many, have acted against the Emperor's will for reasons inscrutable, yet meticulously orchestrated. The chamber falls silent, the weight of understanding too immense to bear. Outside, The city continues, oblivious, while beneath the streets, the true rock pulses quietly, unseen, eternal, and patient. Beneath the shattered orbit of a dying star, a lone chaplain kneels upon the charred deck of a warship. The void hums, low and resonant, carrying memories of wars no soul should recall. He confesses to the darkness, a whisper meant for no ear but his own. His faith is frayed, threadbare, yet he clings to it as one clings to driftwood on a sunless sea. Around him, the ship groans, systems failing with deliberate slowness, as if the vessel itself mourns. Outside, starfire flickers across the wreckage of fleet engagements, illuminating ghosts of battles and brothers long dead. Psychic resonance pierces the hull, searing the edge of perception. The chaplain trembles, senses splitting between devotion and despair. In the silence, the star bleeds crimson light across his visor. And he knows, as he has always known, that the truth he prays to understand may demand his soul in return. On a planet devoured by eternal siege, entire hives burn, yet the fires reveal more than ruin. Soldiers collapse, faith-stricken, clutching litanies that yield no protection. Commanders shout orders that dissolve into contradiction. All eyes turn on one another before weapons are drawn. Within the catacombs, psychers glimpse futures bleeding into pasts, memories of victories that were never earned. Some swear they hear Ghostwind's voice, patient, patient beyond comprehension, turning loyalty into an instrument of despair. Even the ecclesiarchy falters, its authority undermined by visions of saints betraying the faithful in silent accusation. Among rubble and ash, a child cries, speaking prophecies no adult dares comprehend. The city itself seems to pulse with judgment, scaffolds collapsing into streets where shadows fight shadows. Every heartbeat carries the weight of unmade history, and beneath it all, a secret festers. A truth hidden by the machinery of faith, a fracture sewn deep into the foundations of creation itself. In the void between Imperium and heresy, a strike cruiser drifts, hull scorched by unseen energy. Its crew mutters prayers to gods that may no longer listen, eyes flicking to sensors that record impossible readings. Stars bend in the viewport, constellations looping and folding like parchment in a storm. Within the bridge, the captain wrestles with visions of battles yet to come, friends dying before they live. Every decision feels preordained, every command a ritual of surrender. Ghostwind moves unseen, shaping probability, threading destiny like a tapestry whose design mortals cannot grasp. Pilots report enemy ships appearing and disappearing, all eyes return as foes. Even the machine spirits whimper, their resonance tuned to patterns outside comprehension. The captain closes his eyes, admitting a truth too long denied. Nothing is secure, nothing is eternal, and the very act of loyalty may serve as the catalyst for universal decay. The void exhales, and the stars tremble in response. Among the scorched temples of a forgotten world, priests murmur liturgies that shift under memory's weight. Relics resonate, not with blessing, but with warning, as if history itself refuses obedience. A high inquisitor kneels, recounting every victory and failure, only to find they are inverted, rewritten by forces unseen. Ghostwind's presence is subtle yet undeniable, a calculus of influence woven into belief itself. Soldiers swear oaths while their minds fracture, interpreting sacred texts as condemnation or excuse in equal measure. Even the temple's architecture bends perception, corridors folding back upon themselves, stairways ending where they began. Pilgrims arrive, eyes hollow, repeating tales of miracles that unmake as soon as they are observed. Shadows whisper of heresies buried beneath orthodoxy, of alliances forged in secret and betrayal recorded in cosmic ledger. The Inquisitor realizes too late. The foundation of devotion is built on lies older than the Imperium, and faith is not a shield but a conduit, drawing the believer into forces that predate stars. Within the caverns of a dying moon, warriors huddle, their armor scarred, bolters humming faintly. Around them, stalagmites bleed light, psychic resonance echoing the memories of fallen comrades and alien slaughter. Their chaplain recites litany after litany, yet the words feel like glass in the mouth. Ghostwind lingers in the space between thought and perception, subtle, patient, shaping doubt into weaponry sharper than any blade. Soldiers see friends betray each other in dream and waking alike, their loyalty bending like metal under heat. The tunnels pulse with the cadence of unrecorded history, events repeated with variations that are both minor and cataclysmic. A sudden roar shakes the cavern, a creature of bone and energy, yet it is unclear whether it is real, psychic, or prophecy. The chaplain whispers a confession. I do not know if I serve the Emperor or the absence he leaves behind. Above, the moon's shadow stretches into the void, reaching toward infinity. On a world scoured by endless firestorms, the last cathedral stands, half collapsed, its bells ringing through smoke. Priests and warriors alike kneel in exhaustion, faces streaked with ash and blood. Visions of past glories and future doom flicker before every eye, intersecting in impossible geometries. Ghostwind's influence is pervasive, subtle manipulations of perception, bending faith and courage into instruments of despair. Soldiers turn on allies without knowing why, and commanders discover orders contradicting themselves in real time. In the Vesper halls, scholars trace histories that dissolve the moment comprehension approaches. Even the Emperor's name feels strained, insufficient against the weight of cosmic calculation. A lone acolyte discovers inscriptions carved into the foundation, prophecies of betrayal so absolute that loyalty itself is called into question. The chapter commander reads and trembles. He knows the revelation will reshape every campaign, every oath, every confession ever made. Outside, the fires consume the city, yet the true inferno burns within hearts and minds, unseen and uncontainable. Within a drifting void station, emissaries of fractured houses convene, their voices carrying suspicion heavier than the metal of the hull. Every gesture, every document, every word is laden with subtle threat. Reports arrive of fleets vanishing, worlds bending, histories folding back upon themselves. Ghostwind's hand is invisible, yet undeniable. Probabilities are rewritten, alliances corrupted before they are formed. Priests counsel strategy, generals debate interpretation, and bureaucrats manipulate truth as if it were a weapon of psychic resonance. A sudden revelation shocks the conclave. An ancient covenant exists, predating even recorded Imperium, whose influence threads through every decision and loyalty. Eyes widen, disbelief clashes with awe. Across the room, servants vanish, then reappear altered. Time and memory resist observation. The emissaries realize not all betrayals are mortal. Some are woven into the very lattice of existence. And in this subtle collapse, certainty dies, leaving only terror shaped by comprehension too vast to endure. On a shattered oceanic planet, knights patrol the surface in armored columns, hulls glinting under the glare of twin dying suns. Below, ruins hum with ancient resonance, structures older than history itself. Psychers perceive currents of thought, battle, and betrayal folded into the very rock. Crews report visions of friends who should not exist, speaking truths that unsettle, fragmenting belief. Even the most devout warriors feel faith erode, slipping beneath the weight of revelation. Ghostwind's influence is a river running beneath all, shaping perception, loyalty, and doubt with patient precision. In the deepest chasms, a symbol pulses with intelligence, a message written in energy, geometry, and history itself. A high inquisitor interprets its meaning and falters. The message redefines all allegiance, all devotion, all previous understanding. The planet itself vibrates, a heartbeat in communion with cosmic truth. And in that vibration, the knights sense the first whispers of a universe transformed. In a cathedral world's shattered archives, records shimmer and writhe like living ink. Librarians stare at histories that contradict themselves, events folding in upon one another, rewriting victories and deaths. Ghostwind has touched these archives, leaving imprints of memory not meant for comprehension. Scholars faint, then awaken, reciting doctrines that never existed, their faith both enhanced and hollowed simultaneously. Outside, riots flare in streets where none existed hours before. Armies deploy against enemies who are illusions of probability. Commanders hesitate, doubting the integrity of orders. Even the Omnissiah's light seems dimmed by knowledge that should not exist. And then, a hidden codex reveals a secret: the origin of certain star systems, the foundation of empires, and the genesis of conflict were orchestrated by a force outside time, outside reason, and outside morality. Those who read it tremble, understanding that loyalty, belief, and history itself were always instruments in a game whose rules mortals were never meant to know. Among the frozen wastes of a long-dead system, explorers discover a tomb world hidden beneath ice. The planet quakes as if breathing, alive with resonance older than memory. In the catacombs, relics pulse with forbidden energy, inscriptions shifting under the observer's gaze. Soldiers witness allies betray instinctively, priests recite heresies unknowingly, and explorers perceive futures folding into present. Ghostwind moves subtly, orchestrating perception into terror. At the tomb's center lies an artifact, crystalline, incomprehensible, yet familiar to those who see it. A psychic scream shatters minds. A vision unfolds: the Imperium, its wars, its faith, its heroes, all instruments of a design written before stars existed. Those present feel a transformation begin, bodies and minds bending under revelation. Loyalty fractures, faith redefines itself, and the galaxy tilts on an axis that had never been imagined. They understand finally that nothing lived, died, or fought independently. Everything was guided by something eternal, unseen, and inescapable. On the edge of a rift beneath warp and Materium, a solitary vessel drifts toward impossible geometries. Sensors collapse. Stars flicker, reality quivers. The captain, the last surviving crew, and a single psyker confront a vision of Ghostwind incarnate, a form that is all space, all history, all war, and yet nothing material. Speech is impossible, thought is weaponized. The psyker convulses, revealing truths in flashes, battles orchestrated, faith engineered, deaths curated to perfection. The captain understands in a single paralyzing moment that every choice made across the Imperium was already accounted for, every loyalty predicted and utilized. The rift pulses, the vessel bends. The stars sing. In a final quiet act of revelation, the ship itself is consumed, transformed into something alive, eternal, a vessel of Ghostwind's will. The universe watches, silent and eternal, and the first seeds of comprehension take root in the minds of those who survive. The galaxy itself has always been a design. Within the cathedral of a shattered planet, priests, warriors, and scholars kneel together, unseeing as a psychic storm folds the night over their heads. Ghostwind whispers through every mind, stitching understanding, despair, and awe into a single pulse of cosmic truth. Memories of battles, oaths, betrayals, and victories unravel and rewrite themselves, forming patterns impossible to resist. Soldiers see comrades act against instinct, priests recite doctrines that contradict themselves, and scholars perceive history as a living organism. From the nave, a beam of alien energy pierces the dome, etching sigils of creation itself into the architecture. The faithful recognize the symbols as origin, destiny, and collapse simultaneously. In the final moments, a child gazes upward and speaks words none should know, revealing a covenant older than gods, older than the Emperor, older than time. Silence falls. Faith is reborn and destroyed in the same heartbeat, and the cathedral trembles with the realization that nothing is as it was, and the galaxy will never be the same. The cathedral world trembles beneath a violet sky, rent by unseen tides of psychic energy. Soldiers kneel in prayer, bolters trembling in their grip, hearts heavy with the knowledge of battles lost and sins endured. Every oath feels brittle, every promise sharpened into a weapon against memory itself. Priests whisper confessions to walls that do not listen, recounting acts of devotion now revealed as complicity in ancient manipulations. Outside, the streets quake as orbital bombardments mark invisible lines upon the surface, dust rising like ghosts of vanished civilizations. Commanders argue in fevered tones over orders that contradict the evidence of their senses. Ghostwind's presence is patient, threaded through every misstep, shaping both doubt and action alike. As the light fades and shadows lengthen, even faith trembles, unsure whether it shields or condemns. A single lit candle flickers in the nave, reflecting the galaxy's fragile pulse, poised on the edge of inevitability. In the void above, a fleet drifts through warp-distorted currents, every vessel straining against forces that defy comprehension. Navigators chant in tongues forgotten by time, their minds tethered to stars that bleed memory. Sensors record impossibilities, ships that appear and vanish, trajectories folding upon themselves like paper. Captains grieve comrades who have not yet lived, as futures intersect with histories rewritten by unseen hands. Battle orders clash with perception, every maneuver haunted by outcomes predestined. Among the crew, whispers of Ghostwind swell, a lullaby of inevitability and doom. Even machine spirits shudder, recognizing influence beyond logic. In the observation deck, officers stare through port windows as nova storms dance across the horizon, reflecting the chaos in their own hearts. Every choice, every prayer, every act of courage carries cost measured in countless lives. The fleet waits, poised on the edge of revelation, as the currents of destiny coil around them like a predator. Beneath the ruined spires of a hive, soldiers stagger through corridors coated with ash and blood. The air vibrates with faint psychic resonance, memories of massacres past intertwining with the specters of those yet to die. Chaplains murmur litanies whose meanings dissolve under pressure, echoing the fragility of faith against inexorable entropy. Officers issue orders that disintegrate under the weight of unseen interference. Every bolt fired carries a question. Was the target real or merely a shadow of Ghostwind's design? Servitors malfunction with purposeful randomness, adding uncertainty to every action. Civilians crawl from rubble, repeating prayers that carry half-truths, their devotion manipulated into subtle betrayal. In quiet chambers, conspirators whisper of allegiances older than the Imperium, alliances forged in secrecy, their implications catastrophic. The hive itself seems aware, breathing with a rhythm older than thought. Each heartbeat resonates with the cost of obedience. Every step forward, a negotiation with forces that do not yield. Silence and tension thicken, waiting for the inevitable fracture. On a world scorched by orbital bombardment, commanders kneel atop ash-choked bastions, surveying the devastation wrought by unseen hands. Flames lit the horizon, reflecting the burning choices of mortals who cannot comprehend the orchestration of fate. Even victories taste of ruin, their meaning hollowed by the knowledge that every triumph was anticipated, every defeat preordained. Priests chant beside gravestones, their voices trembling under weight too great to bear. Soldiers collapse, fatigue and doubt gnawing at their resolve, questioning the purpose of devotion in a universe that reshapes itself regardless. Whispered rumors speak of heresies older than history, conspiracies folded into the very architecture of loyalty. Ghostwind watches, patient, threading subtle terror into action, bending bravery into despair. Every action becomes a reflection, every sacrifice a lesson, every oath a bargaining chip in a cosmic design beyond reckoning. And the world waits, trembling, as the first pulse of revelation begins to thrum beneath the scorched soil. In the orbit of a dying sun, a solitary vessel drifts, engines silent but alive with latent resonance. Captains pace endlessly, aware of unseen eyes tracing every decision, every hesitation. Sensors detect anomalies that do not exist, threats imagined and real intertwined. Crew psychers convulse, receiving visions of futures and pasts, folded into a single unbearable perception. Even prayers recited with conviction dissolve into echoes of futility, loyalty reshaped by invisible threads. Orders issued dissolve as their consequences unfold before they are executed, leaving commanders paralyzed between action and knowledge. Ghostwind's influence is subtle yet absolute, orchestrating doubt and revelation alike. In the observation chamber, the stars themselves flicker as though uncertain of their positions, a cosmic reflection of the hearts aboard. Every heartbeat resonates with anticipation and terror, and the crew realizes that the coming event will define the galaxy's shape for millennia, revealing truths mortals were never meant to witness. Silence stretches like a blade across the void. Within the fractured vaults of a planetary monastery, librarians convene, minds linked by psychic resonance. Ancient texts writhe beneath their gaze, histories bending and looping in impossible geometries. Ghostwind's presence is tangible yet untouchable, a force shaping belief, loyalty, and memory. Soldiers stand guard, their bolters humming faintly, hearts weighed by the knowledge that orders may contradict reality itself. Chaplains whisper confessions of sins never committed, truths folded into falsehoods by unseen architects. Every insight brings terror, every revelation fractures certainty. Outside, orbital bombardments reshape the planet, buildings collapsing even as they remain intact. Psychers feel the convergence of events, timelines folding like metal under heat. The monastery itself vibrates with tension, every corridor a conduit of dread. A single initiate receives a vision of the galaxy as a living organism. Every empire, every conflict, every prayer a nerve firing under Ghostwind's patient hand. Knowledge and despair intertwine, leaving the faithful poised on the edge of comprehension. On a world consumed by psychic storms, soldiers and civilians alike flee from cyclones that carry whispers of history and futures yet to be. Chaplains attempt to anchor faith, reciting litanies into winds that devour sound. Every echo carries doubt, every movement shapes consequence, every prayer bends beneath unseen influence. Commanders confront allies who act contrary to instinct, orders collapsing under the weight of predestination. Ghostwind's presence threads through every mind, a subtle predator shaping both thought and action. Scouts report phenomena that defy reason, structures that fold back upon themselves, shadows moving independently, voices repeating before they are spoken. Even the machinery quivers under psychic resonance, servitors stuttering, systems faltering. The storm is both literal and symbolic, a reflection of the galaxy's unraveling coherence. Each heart beats in tension, each mind fractures under knowledge too immense. The planet itself groans as if aware, and the faithful realize that survival is no longer a choice, but a negotiation with inevitability. Above a shattered hive, void ships hang like vultures, observing worlds already bent by unseen hands. Pilots feel currents in the warp that twist perception, revealing futures folded upon themselves. Battles erupt, soldiers advancing and retreating in patterns both familiar and impossible. Priests and chaplains counsel obedience, yet every word is corrupted by subtle manipulations, faith bending like reeds in storm winds. Orders clash, loyalty fractures. Victories come with the bitter aftertaste of betrayal, orchestrated by forces invisible. Ghostwind's hand is everywhere, not through violence but by predetermining the outcome of thought, action, and devotion. Even generals recognize the futility of command. The hive groans beneath the weight of consequence, streets fracturing, spires collapsing, civilians fleeing into ash-choked corridors. Silence and fury oscillate across the city like tides. And above it all, a pulse resonates, measured, inevitable, marking the approach of a revelation whose magnitude will reshape belief, loyalty, and the trajectory of the entire galaxy. Within a void station orbiting a gas giant, emissaries convene under banners of allegiance fragile as glass. Every conversation carries subtle threat, every gesture weighed against unseen consequences. Ghostwind's influence threads through all minds, turning trust into a weapon, faith into a liability. Scholars and officers alike confront anomalies in records, contradictions manifesting before comprehension can take hold. Agents vanish and reappear altered, memories fractured, loyalty reshaped. Even prayers recited in unison dissolve into discord, meaning unrecognizable. The station itself shivers, corridors bending, lights flickering in sync with the universe's latent pulse. The emissaries understand that every choice they have made has already been anticipated, every betrayal recorded in an invisible ledger. Silence thickens, pregnant with anticipation, as the station waits with them, poised on the cusp of revelation. The first threads of cosmic truth begin to unravel the very fabric of obedience, devotion, and duty. Every heart quivers, every mind braces, the galaxy readying itself for a storm unimagined. On a scorched desert world, knights march across dunes under twin suns collapsing into red brilliance. Bolters hum, litanies recited mechanically, hearts heavy with the weight of impossible duty. Each step brings them closer to engagements whose outcomes are already inscribed in unseeing hands. Shadows of comrades betray instinct, allies falter, commanders hesitate. Ghostwind threads through perception, bending loyalty and courage into instruments of despair. The sands shift unnaturally, revealing glyphs of unknown origin, inscriptions hinting at manipulation older than memory. Even the most faithful recognize the futility of pure action. The wind carries whispers of betrayal, victories, and deaths yet to come, indistinguishable from one another. In the distance, orbital bombardments begin their slow descent, painting the horizon with light and ruin. Every heartbeat echoes with anticipation. Every breath carries the scent of choices long made. And yet, the knights advance, compelled by devotion, unaware of the storm ready to consume them entirely. In the catacombs beneath a corrupted hive, conspirators meet under shadows that shift unnaturally. Plans are whispered, alliances forged and broken before they exist. Every action resonates with subtle manipulation, Ghostwind threading reality to bend outcome, loyalty, and faith. Soldiers hesitate mid-order, citizens act against instinct, priests recite prayers that betray intention. Outside, orbital cannons mark invisible trajectories, shells of light and flame tracing preordained arcs. Every pulse of machinery, every tremor of stone, carries consequence written before comprehension. A sudden vision strikes one conspirator, a revelation of universal design, of betrayals embedded across time, shaping the galaxy itself. Silence falls. The catacombs themselves seem to hold their breath. Every mind present recognizes the gravity. The coming event will redefine loyalty, faith, and understanding for every sentient being in reach. The conspirators tremble, knowing that even their sins are instruments and forces they cannot resist. The threshold of revelation looms, and all wait in terror and anticipation. Above a dying star, fleets brace for engagement. Shipyards tremble, void storms writhe. Every weapon, every strategy, every act of faith is measured against an invisible ledger of inevitability. Captains, priests, psychers, and soldiers alike feel the weight of history folding over them. Victories and defeats, alike preordained. Ghostwind's presence pulses through warp currents, subtle, inexorable, bending action, belief, and loyalty. Orders are given and immediately contradicted by circumstance. All eyes turn into adversaries before thought itself can guide them. Even the light of the Emperor falters, a dim pulse against cosmic orchestration. Silence dominates, punctuated by sudden bursts of psychic resonance that shred comprehension. The fleets brace, soldiers clutch rosaries, psychers scream into visions of inevitability. The universe itself seems to tremble in anticipation. And then, as all eyes fix upon the coming moment, fate pauses, balanced on a razor's edge, waiting to strike with consequences no mind has yet fathomed. The void ruptures with sudden deafening intensity. Ships collide with impossibly precise fury, metal screaming across the black as energy weapons tear through armor and hull alike. Sparks flare, eyes widen, and psychers convulse, their screams folding into the resonance of stars. Orders shatter mid-sentence. Commanders die before thought completes. Ghostwind hums through the chaos, patient, infinite, threading every act of courage, fear, and betrayal into a lattice beyond comprehension. Among the wreckage, a lone chaplain kneels, reciting prayers that bend under the weight of destiny. His words are swallowed by explosions, yet they ripple through minds attuned to faith. Soldiers fall and rise again in visions, victories undone as quickly as they are won. Each heartbeat carries the weight of galaxies, each breath of smoke a confession unheeded. The collision of will and inevitability presses against the void itself, and all who witness it sense that something eternal is awakening. On the shattered surface of a cathedral world, firestorms consume spires while warriors charge through ash and ruin. Bolters bark, litanies scream across battlefields scarred by faith and betrayal. Every footstep feels preordained, every strike both triumph and condemnation. A lieutenant sees a comrade fall to unseen forces, not enemy, but probability itself twisted by Ghostwind's design. Priests collapse beside gravestones, chanting prayers that twist into heresy with every syllable. Civilians flee through streets folded into themselves, alleys appearing where none existed, pathways leading back into danger. Even the sky seems alive, flaring with the knowledge of unseen witnesses. Sacrifice becomes ritual, ritual becomes weapon, and the cost of devotion etches itself into every mind. Time fractures. Moments repeat with variations, a cruel reflection of choice and consequence. And in the center of the city, a single cathedral trembles, the heart of the storm, carrying the promise of revelation that no mortal could endure unbroken. In orbit above, fleet commanders scream into void come, orders contradicting themselves in cycles that twist reality. Ships vanish, reappear, fold into impossible trajectories. Psychers clutch consoles, eyes rolling back as visions of past, present, and future converge. Ghostwind's influence is complete. Every action, every hesitation, every prayer is accounted for, yet none is controlled by mortal will. Explosions flake reality, stars bending like molten metal, void itself resonating with the pulse of inevitability. Officers die mid-command, replaced by apparitions of themselves from futures that never were. Amid the chaos, a single captain remains, eyes burning with comprehension. Loyalty, faith, heroism, and sin are threads in a tapestry whose weaver is eternal. The void hums, patient, indifferent, and the fleet braces for the impossible crescendo. The moment approaches, a heartbeat stretched across millennia, where sacrifice, revelation, and despair will collide in a blaze that reshapes understanding forever. Beneath the ruins of a hive, soldiers fight through corridors collapsed by psychic tremors. Bolters fire blindly into smoke and ash, yet each shot lands with impossible precision or misses by impossible measure. Chaplains scream prayers that double back on themselves, accusations and absolution indistinguishable. Civilians cower beneath statues that weep flame. Ghostwind threads reality like a weaver, bending loyalty and courage into instruments of revelation. All eyes betray instinct, enemies falter, and every choice echoes through layers of time folded over themselves. In a hidden vault, an inquisitor deciphers a prophecy. The culmination of all wars, all faith, all betrayal is arriving now. The knowledge shatters comprehension, yet compels action. Soldiers fall willingly into death that serves design beyond their minds. And in that terrible harmony, the hive itself becomes a conductor of inevitability, resonating with the screams of the faithful, the dying, and the triumphantly damned. On a frozen world, knights charge across ice fields under auroras writhing with psychic light. Bolters fire. Energy swords crackle, lances pierce armor. Each strike is measured by Ghostwind's invisible hand, choices both their own and yet impossibly guided. Psychers collapse into convulsions, seeing battles that are, were, and will never be simultaneously. Commanders hesitate, realizing the futility of action and the inevitability of consequence. Every act of courage carries ruin. Every prayer echoes into the void unanswered. Ice shatters beneath the weight of destiny. Explosions send shards into the black sky. Even the auroras seem to pulse with anticipation, reflecting the cost of devotion in sickly spectral light. The nights fight and die in synchrony, their heroism a note in a symphony of inevitability. By the time silence falls, the ice is strewn with evidence of sacrifice, and the first whispers of understanding tremble through those who remain alive. Within an asteroid monastery, librarians link minds in a psychic chorus. Ancient texts rife with impossible histories, visions of empires built and destroyed before comprehension. Ghostwind's presence saturates every thought, every memory, every heartbeat. Soldiers guard corridors that fold upon themselves. Chaplains murmur litanies that double as accusations. Knowledge, belief, and fear intertwine, forming a lattice of revelation that is both exquisite and unbearable. Outside, orbital bombardments churn the atmosphere, lightning flashing across vaults. Each pulse of energy sends tremors through minds attuned to psychic resonance. A single initiate perceives the cosmic truth. Every act, every choice, every betrayal is a note in a melody older than stars. Reality fractures, time loops. Loyalty, faith, and heroism are instruments in a design beyond reckoning. And in the center of the monastery, a relic pulses with alien intelligence, preparing to unleash comprehension too vast for mortal minds, signaling that the climax of history is nigh. On a desert world, warriors collapse beneath the twin suns, bolters smoking, armor scorched. Each step toward the enemy is mirrored by betrayal elsewhere. Every prayer answered with silence. Ghostwind threads perception, bending courage, fear, and loyalty into instruments of revelation. Sandstorms rage, carrying voices of the fallen, memories of sacrifices made long before the battle began. Commanders shout orders that unravel mid-sentence. All eyes act contrary to instinct. Psychic resonance twists reality. Dunes fold upon themselves. Death dances in patterns impossible to trace. Soldiers clutch rosaries, hearts heavy with the knowledge of predestined failure. Explosions flare like the pulse of the universe itself, illuminating the costs of devotion in stark crimson light. And as the climax approaches, the horizon itself seems to bend, warping stars and planets into shapes unseen. Every living soul trembles, aware that the coming moment will define loyalty, faith, and sacrifice for the galaxy itself. Within a ruined void station, emissaries confront one another across a chamber fractured by psychic tremors. Every gesture, word, and glance carries subtle threat. Ghostwind's presence bends probability, loyalty, and belief, turning diplomacy into battle. Servants vanish, documents rewrite themselves, and histories contradict observed events. The station thrums with latent resonance, reflecting the inevitability of the coming confrontation. The emissaries understand too late that their actions have been anticipated for centuries. Shouts echo, glass shatters, bolters fire. Moments collapse into one another. Amid the chaos, a single psyker channels visions of the universe folded upon itself, seeing betrayals and triumphs as instruments of eternal design. Every heart races, every mind fractures, and comprehension stretches thin. The crescendo approaches. Silence holds between each explosion, each gunshot, as if reality itself waits for the impact. And then, the final thread of inevitability begins to weave itself through every soul present. Above a cathedral world, void ships tear through skies in chaotic symphony. Explosions ripple across the surface. Fires paint the horizon with light and ruin. Soldiers charge through streets of ash and flame, bolters firing, litanies tearing the air. Commanders collapse mid-command, allies falter. Ghostwind threads through thought, shaping loyalty, courage, and betrayal alike. The sky flares as orbital bombardments mark the culmination of centuries of war. Psychers scream, visions of past and future colliding with unbearable clarity. Every strike, every prayer, every death resonates across space and time. In the city's heart, a cathedral trembles, pulsing with psychic resonance that reflects the cost of devotion itself. Flames reveal both sacrifice and futility in equal measure. And in the eye of this storm, a single revelation blooms. The universe has been guided, every act a note in a song written before comprehension existed, waiting for the final chord. Beneath an ocean of ash, soldiers crawl through corridors of molten debris, bolters firing blindly. Priests recite prayers that echo into reality itself, litanies twisting into accusation and absolution simultaneously. Ghostwind's influence bends loyalty, belief, and memory, shaping outcome before action begins. Civilians flee corridors folded impossibly, shadows acting against instinct. Explosions flare, walls collapse, and the heat of sacrifice drives every heartbeat into desperation. Soldiers fall, some willingly, some dragged by the invisible hand of inevitability. Psychers convulse, seeing timelines fold into each other like metal under immense heat. Every choice carries ruin, every action reverberates across the galaxy. And in the center of the chaos, a relic pulses with understanding older than stars, ready to reshape belief, devotion, and reality itself. Silence approaches after the final scream, carrying with it the weight of revelation too vast to articulate, leaving only trembling hearts to endure comprehension unfulfilled. On a shattered orbital station, fleet and infantry alike brace against forces bending reality. Explosions flake reality, void itself resonating with the pulse of destiny. Soldiers die mid-action, replaced by apparitions from futures that never were. Chaplains scream, litanies breaking into fragments of comprehension. Ghostwind threads every heartbeat, every prayer, every breath, orchestrating inevitability into final form. Captains understand too late. All battles, all choices, all loyalty, all devotion are instruments in a design eternal and incomprehensible. Psychers convulse, projecting visions of the galaxy folded into a single terrible geometry. The crescendo strikes. Metal screams, light fractures. And then, as the immediate fury recedes, silence falls. Silence carries both devastation and revelation, the kind that lingers like the memory of flame on stone. Across worlds, fleets, and minds, the galaxy pauses, transformed in ways unspoken, incomprehensible yet undeniable. Something eternal has shifted, and all who remain sense that nothing will ever be the same. The galaxy exhales in silence. Cathedrals stand cracked and empty, their spires reaching into voids where stars flicker like dying candles. Bolters lie cold among ash-strewn streets, banners torn and still, holding memories of courage now folded into dust. The wind carries whispers of prayers unanswered, litanies muttered by voices long gone. Survivors wander through landscapes of ruin, shoulders bowed beneath burdens they cannot name. In hidden chambers, psychers shiver, sensing the remnants of Ghostwind's orchestration, echoes of inevitability that persist even in calm. Even the machine spirits murmur in quiet grief, recounting acts of devotion and sin that are now indistinguishable. The weight of centuries presses into the marrow of the galaxy, yet no voice answers, no god intercedes. And beneath the silence, questions linger. What is loyalty when destiny is written? And what is faith when even the stars have wept? On a frost-shattered world, a lone sentinel trudges among skeletal forests, the snow carrying ash and memory alike. Every step echoes with the ghosts of battles fought for causes now incomprehensible. Cathedrals roofless, towers cleaved in half, stand as monuments to devotion and futility. Bolts of dying sunlight streak the sky, illuminating streets empty of sound yet heavy with recollection. Chaplains' robes flutter in unseeing wind. Their prayers linger as incense, faint and fragrant with history. A child crawls through ruins, whispering fragments of litanies no longer understood. Psychers dream among the rubble, visions of loyalty twisted by forces now absent. Somewhere, distant and unmeasured, Ghostwind stirs like a memory, a pulse in the silence. The sentinel pauses, hands resting on a bolter cooled by absence, and wonders, can faith endure when all evidence of its worth has vanished? Even the snow seems to hesitate before falling. In orbit above a world scorched by centuries of war, derelict ships drift like fallen angels. Hulls scarred, lights extinguished, ghosts of maneuvering crews whisper in corridors long dead. Among them, a single remembrancer records what remains. Logs of devotion, betrayal, sacrifice, and despair, stitched together in memory alone. Void hums through empty chambers, carrying the echo of battles folded into time. Relays pulse faintly, transmitting nothing, receiving nothing, yet bearing witness to the imprint of every act. Cathedrals on planets below cast long shadows, silent witnesses to devotion and ruin alike. Even in stillness, the stars seem aware, bending faintly as though listening. Questions emerge like ash. Did the sacrifice change anything, or was the galaxy always designed to suffer? Can hope survive when every faith has been tested against eternity? And the remembrancer writes, knowing the answers belong to no living being, only to the quiet pulse of the cosmos. Beneath the shattered nave of a once mighty cathedral, survivors light candles on cracked floors. Each flame trembles against the dark, carrying memory and longing, confession and grief. Bolters lean against fallen pews, their barrels etched with marks of lives both taken and spared. The air hums with quiet resonance, a lingering remnant of psychic storms that shape destiny. Chaplains murmur fragments of prayers, speaking to absence as though presence remained. Across the nave, banners hang torn and silent, symbols of victories and defeats alike. Outside, wind carries ash and dust across streets, empty of motion but full of echo. Memory itself seems to linger in the stones, whispering of loyalty, of courage, of sins too vast to name. And in that hushed cathedral, one wonders, what remains when the echo of faith outlasts faith itself? And who bears witness when all gods have fallen silent? On a battlefield of iron and bone, the dead lie entangled in the architecture of war. Smoke rises not as flame but as remembrance, carrying the weight of victories, betrayals, and uncounted lives. Chaplains kneel among shattered banners, lips moving in prayers that reach only shadows. Soldiers who survived pace slowly, bolters dragging against dust-strewn ground, eyes hollow yet aware. The wind moves through twisted metal, whispering questions that no one dares answer aloud. Is courage meaningful when orchestrated? Is loyalty real when predicted? Distant stars cast light through smoke, illuminating scars in walls and hearts alike. Among the ruins, a remembrancer gathers fragments of memory, recording names, deeds, and sins, stitching together an account that might outlast even time. Every act of heroism and every betrayal leaves a pulse in the lingering air, a quiet thrum that persists after the last shot. The battlefield breathes, heavy, patient, eternal. Within the shattered halls of an orbital fortress, echoes of council and conflict persist despite emptiness. Chairs toppled, documents fluttering in silent ventilation. Bolters left where last wielded, reminders of choices executed and undone. The remembrancer notes the cadence of despair and triumph intertwined, recording not for justice, but for remembrance itself. Ghostwind's influence lingers faintly, a subtle shiver across walls and minds, shaping memory in the absence of action. Psychers walk unseeing corridors, seeing what was, what could have been, and what now never will. Questions twist in the air. When empires crumble and every faith is tested, what remains of devotion? And what cost does endurance demand when all structures of certainty collapse? The fortress itself seems to sigh, a memory given form. And in that sigh, the remembrancer writes, even silence is witness, and even witness is fleeting. Across a world of blackened oceans, ruined fortresses jet from water, thick with ash and reflection. Ships burned, their hulks casting shadows that linger long after flame has vanished. Soldiers wander coastal cliffs, tracing paths of devotion carved in blood and ruin. Cathedrals rise above waves, roofless and silent, the wind carrying faint litanies like drifting incense. Chaplains murmur in remembrance, unaware that voices carry farther than the living. Psychers touch water and glimpse currents of probability long spent, understanding the cost of endurance, yet powerless to change it. Even the oceans seem to grieve, tides pulling at memories as though the planet remembers what the stars do not. Banners hang limp, colors fading into ash. Questions drift with the waves. Is faith a shield, or merely the weight we carry into oblivion? And in the distance, the horizon bends like a sigh, marking time unmeasured. On a frost-shattered moon, sentinels stand in silent watch over ruins of bunkers and observation posts. Frost coats shattered weapons, wind carries whispered prayers, and the sky glows faintly with residual psychic energy. Chaplains move among them, steps slow, recounting deeds that may have changed nothing. The remembrancer observes, recording the tremor of each choice, the fall of each oath, the quiet grief of endurance. Shadows twist across ice, reflections of lives lost and never lived. Even stars seem to tremble in sympathy, a celestial elegy to a galaxy's memory. Loyalty and devotion resonate faintly like wind through hollow halls. Each heartbeat is a question. What becomes of those who endure when all else collapses? And each pulse carries the answer only half-formed. Survival itself is fragile, beautiful, and unknowable. Silence gathers like snow, covering ruins and souls alike. Within the hollowed vaults of a planet's cathedral archives, scrolls tremble in empty racks. The remembrancer writes carefully, ink tracing histories that may already have been rewritten by forces unseen. Shadows of battle, betrayal, and sacrifice hover in the corners, a presence heavier than memory. Bolters lean against walls, candles flicker faintly. Psychically attuned minds perceive lingering ghostwind threads. Priests kneel in hushed devotion, acknowledging acts of courage too immense to name. Outside, cities smolder, silence save for drifting ash. Every act recorded, every loss measured against the imperceptible scale of eternity. The remembrancer pauses, quill hovering. Is faith only echo when gods remain silent? Is endurance simply the act of carrying memory into the void? No answer comes, only the sigh of stone and the subtle shiver of history's pulse, awaiting witnesses who will never arrive. Across scarred continents, fields of battle are empty save for the wind and drifting ash. Smoke curls from half-collapsed fortresses, carrying whispers of prayers, commands, and confessions. Survivors stumble through streets where shadows linger long after the living have passed. Bolters lie cold. Banners hang still, tattered and pale. Chaplains mutter inaudible litanies into streets hollowed by destruction. Ghostwind's echo vibrates faintly through ruined towers, a reminder that all deeds, all choices, all faith are threads woven into a tapestry beyond mortal reckoning. The remembrancer records silently, marking the passage of endurance, sacrifice, and devotion, understanding that memory itself may be the last salvation. Questions float like ash. What is the price of witnessing when survival is all that remains? And what becomes of hope when silence answers all prayer? The world exhales slowly, carrying its last sigh into the void. On a moon of ash and ice, ruins stretch into horizons pale with frost. Cathedrals are roofless, bells silent, pews broken. Soldiers kneel beside fallen comrades, hands resting on cold weapons, eyes closed in quiet remembrance. The remembrancer notes every detail: fire-streaked walls, drifting snow, faint whispers of prayers that may never have reached gods. Even ghosts seem still, patient, and aware. Winds shift ash across streets, revealing fleeting glimpses of devotion and ruin intertwined. Every heartbeat is a confession, every breath a question unanswerable. Survivors walk slowly, carrying the weight of centuries, bearing memory in silence. And the stars above, scattered and faint, seem to pulse with the lingering grief of creation. As the remembrancer's final lines are traced, a gentle request drifts through time. stand witness to the echoes of devotion, to the ruin and courage that remain. Please like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments.